it's not so much the business. I think my podcast is the people. Their business is second. I don't go, oh, because they have this business, I want to talk to them. It's like, no, I want to talk to the person behind all that. And then everyone gets to know them.
The more genuine and authentic you are, the more your guests trust you, the more things come out you didn't expect. And that's what people pick up on when they listen to the episodes.
The passion for me is that I interview this guest and somebody from a far, far away place walks in their door. And they say, I heard this podcast from Dave's podcast and I'm here to try your food, or I'm here to try your coffee. I want to see what you're doing. That's part of the goal for sure.
Dave Sands of the Food Origins podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me on.
It's so awesome to sit down with a fellow podcaster, because there's just certain things about doing this that we get, how long it takes to set everything up, finding people to talk to. What do you talk about? What do you talk about? Not being intimidated, being on camera or on the microphone, worried about what everybody else is going to say, or nobody cares, whatever. You just go out there and you do it. So I respect you doing that, and I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Great to have another opinion like that.
Yeah, thanks.
So how did you get into this Food Origins podcast? Because you remind me of, I won't say Gordon Ramsay. No, you remind me of Anthony Bourdain. Like, man, I got some stories about food. I want to go out there and find out how different people enjoy different cuisines, how different chefs create their dish. How do they get into it? So you're tapping into an environment that I'm excited to hear about. But how did you get into it?
It's a long story, and that's kind of why you wanted me to have me on. But back in college, I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. So I was going to school for that and thought I could do that, and was not great at it at all. And then, I was looking at my drawings, and there's like a guy with a Jim Lee comic next to me, and mine looks like, 5-year-old drew it. And I was like, this is going to be a long road for me if I keep going this way, right? I had a huge gap to fill, right? And then, my dad and my ex at the time were like, hey, you're always cooking. You're cooking with your mom. You're cooking all the time, cooking everywhere, and scouts, all kinds of stuff. Why don't you go be a chef? And my mom didn't like it because she had a job that you stand up all the time. She was like, no, you're going to be standing up all the time. But I was like, you know what? Sounds a lot of fun. So I went to culinary school at the City College of San Francisco, to their hotel and restaurant program. Really great program, 2-year program. And they put you through the ringer for everything: prep, cooking, breakfast, restaurant stuff, management, doing like different, learning the herbs and spices, learning about wine, learning about service. And you could go either route, right? Like you were going to go behind the kitchen, or you're going to go work in a hotel, kind of. Those are the kinds of ways they taught. So,
are you Italian?
I'm not.
What are you?
Half Japanese, half Caucasian.
Japanese.
Yeah.
Nihongo desu ka?
Yeah.
Do you speak
Skoshi.
Oh, good. I got someone to talk to now.
Yeah. We both need to learn more. I need to learn a lot more. But
I think it's funny to throw people off, because they don't think of me as understanding Japanese. So they start talking, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
You know what? You have no idea that I can understand
your background.
what you're saying.
What is your background?
I took 6 years between high school and college. And it was a funny story, because I was supposed to go to a high school in the ghetto of where I lived. Yeah. And my dad said, no, you need to go to high school over here, because that's where your sisters went, and the district did some weird reorganizing thing. So they told my dad, if you want your son to go to this high school, you got 2 choices. Either he can take, or he's got to take a course that they don't offer at the other school. So either he takes Japanese, or he takes this TV class. My dad never told me about the TV class. So he said, you're going to this high school, and you're going to learn Japanese, and it's going to be a great thing. We trade a lot with the Japanese. This is how he was thinking.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're going to go learn that. And of course I'm, what was I, 14, 15 years old. I'm like, Japanese, I don't know how to, whatever. I'm like, okay, but I don't want to go to that high school. I want to go to this high school. So I guess I'll do what I got to do. He didn't tell me till like 10 years later, hey, you had a choice, but I never told you the other choice. But are you happy? I'm like, you know what? That's a smart fatherly thing to do, to not tell me that, because I would have picked the easier choice back then.
Sure.
It's funny how that experience there kind of puts me on a path to where, taking the harder path just feels more rewarding at the end of the day, no matter what you actually do. And I'm like, okay, lesson learned from like 25 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah. But it's funny, I can still read it. I can still write it. Speaking it, I have to be immersed in the environment again. Like the last time I went to Japan was before the pandemic, and it comes back to you there. You start reading all the signs on the train stations. You start talking to the people running the restaurants. And then as soon as you go back to the States, it's like, oh, who am I going to talk to around here?
Yeah.
But
No, you got one up on me. You got way more. The last year of high school, I took Spanish for 3 years. And then my Spanish teacher, we had a lady that came in and started teaching Japanese. I was like, oh, I wish I could have taken the whole 4 years. And he knew, my Spanish teacher knew, he goes, I know you're leaving to go take Japanese. So go. He's like, just go. Take that last year and do 1 year of Japanese. But that's all I've got. It was just the super easy stuff, the hiragana and basic stuff. And
it's a great language to learn, and to be immersed in it is definitely something special. Now, how are you with Japanese cooking? Did your mom, who's the Japanese?
My mom's Japanese, yeah. My mom's from Kyoto.
Wow, it's awesome. Did she bring a lot of that home cooking? Or
she brought a lot, definitely a lot of the home cooking, but also just kind of blending into with my dad being American and learning the, kind of the American style of cooking, and then just blending in. And then her friends, a lot of times, like we had an aunt, so-called aunt, it was one of her best friends, who was a really good Japanese cook, and like her stuff was impeccable. Like it was right out of a restaurant. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, my mom took a lot of that from her and then just kind of blended in her own style and having just kind of like more home style. Everyone thinks like, oh, you had sushi growing up. I was like, we didn't have that growing up. That's a special treat,
What was her dish? Was it not omakase? What's the omelet in Kyoto?
The tamago, the oyakudon.
Maybe that's what it is.
Oyakudon's really good. We've made that, yeah, like donburi, pretty much anything over rice, right? Yeah. Like, so different dishes. But yeah, Mike's referring to oyakudon, which is a marinated chicken. It's usually thigh, marinated, and then they saute it with onions, and they make a broth, usually like dashi, and then they add egg to it. And that whole thing gets cooked together and dropped over rice. And ooh, I can't wait to go back to Japan. There's a restaurant there. I cannot think of it right now. Is 100 years old. That's been doing the same dish, and it's through every family generation. And they're still doing it today.
In Kyoto?
I don't know if it's in Kyoto. I think it's in Tokyo. Now, actually,
if you go there, you got to bring this whole equipment thing set up, because to be able to talk to that chef or that family, how they were able to continue that story, that would be something.
Yeah.
But besides San Francisco, you've been to Hawaii?
I have.
So in Waikiki, the Japanese restaurants, they're on another level than what we have here.
Yeah.
There's just I gotta start writing them down, because I know where they're at.
I can always give you a list.
Oh, good. I know where they're at. Like if I go there, this street, that's that little hidden gem.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tourists don't know about it because it's not this big. Like,
I don't know all the spots. Like I haven't been there in a little while, but like, I'm always getting hit up for where should I go here. And then it's fun for me to look up. If you're like, oh, I want tonkatsu, where am I going to get that? I'm like, oh, I'll search far and near, to find it, whether it's a friend that's been there or I've been there, or I look at, different reviews, and I go by the amount of reviews rather than, oh, I have 5 reviews and it's 5 stars. I'm like, well, that's not enough people to tell me it's good. Let's have 1,000, and then if you're at 4 stars, then okay, that place is probably pretty good.
Well, we'll start with your best tips. What's your favorite Japanese place around here? I'm pretty sure it's in the city, right?
It's not, actually.
Ooh. Where are we going?
There's 2, and they're different. They're just different. So if you want ramen, it's Ramen Nagi in Palo Alto.
Oh, I still haven't been there.
Yeah,
still haven't been there. You been there?
Yeah. So super good. They have very traditional, and then they have very like unique dishes. They do a squid ink based one, which is really good, and that's my favorite one. No one else makes it, so that's the only place you can get it. And I think there's like 2 locations out here. I think there's one in Santa Clara, and then there's one in Palo Alto.
Now, how about Ramen Dojo?
Ramen Dojo is really good.
That's the hidden one in San Mateo that we're just telling everybody now to go see.
Yeah, they've been there a long time. There's a few others like Orenchi. Himawari is another one.
Himawari. That was my first take when I moved to San Mateo, was that place. It was just I think it's the amount of salt they put in the shoyu. It was just like, wow, this is like
really good. I'm going to give it up, but their chicken karaage is in my number.
Yes.
It's in my number 1 spot.
That's the number 1?
Yeah. My brother knows too.
See, some people think it tastes too much like American fried chicken because it's traditionally supposed to be a little more breaded, like when you go to.
But I like that. It's lighter. I think they use rice flour. They must use like potato starch or rice flour in there or something.
Yeah, I like it. Even if it's not as traditional as it should be, I like it. So I don't care if someone tells me it's not 100% traditional.
Yeah, and then I'd say Orenchi does the more traditional style. More breaded, more crispy.
See, this is good stuff. I never thought we were going to talk about ramen or the. See, I didn't even think about asking about Japanese. Now I can see it in the facial features. Like, oh, that's it right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and then I'd say like, some just kind of staples, but like San Mateo, if you haven't like explored, it's like another Japantown almost. There's a huge Japanese population there. So there's probably 50 restaurants that are Japanese over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Takahashi Market. I've interviewed Bobby Takahashi over there. It's a family-run restaurant. They've been there 100 years.
That's the one I saw. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the one you probably saw where they've kind of developed into serving a lot of Hawaiian stuff. So they have musubi there that are now on a to-go basis, and then they have all these like Hawaiian dishes that you'd see in Hawaii. So the kalua pork, plate lunch, right? So they have all that there, plus everything else.
I'm getting hungry. I didn't eat today. Now I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, I didn't eat, just so you know, I didn't eat before coming here either.
Man.
But so that's like one that you wouldn't normally think about. And then, there's Sushi Sam's, who I love a lot. Like Sam really like does a nice omakase, right? And omakase, I keep screwing that pronunciation up. But
omakase.
Yeah, everyone has it. It's two ways to pronounce it. But Sam's really does a nice job. You go up to, try to get in their sushi bar up front, sit there, and then they just throw down what's on the menu that day, and then you delete what you don't like, and then that's it.
Jeez. We can go on and on about Japanese restaurants around.
We could. We totally could.
So let's get back into the actual podcast.
Yeah.
So obviously your interest in food goes way back when you were a kid, and I can see how it carries on now. So when did you make the switch? Because you weren't always doing this, correct?
Nope. I wasn't always doing the podcast. I'm sure you're like me. I listened to podcasts for years. Mm-hmm. I listened to Rogan back in the early days. And I think I listened to like Rogan and Mark Maron back in the day. But for the most part, I was a chef for 5 years professionally, cooked in restaurants in the city, and then I did corporate food service down in the peninsula. That's kind of where I ended up. And then got kind of burnt out. Like I was working really hard, trying to get promoted to, the chef positions, and they just kept turning me down. I would do exactly what they wanted. And, sometimes at corporate, they just want to keep you in a spot and just leave you there, expect you to be there forever. And I was like, well, I'm doing chef work. You're not paying me chef pay. And it's tough. And that business is super tough, And so I got burnt out. I just looked for another job. I was like, I just want a job that pays me more than $12 an hour,
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be getting salary at that time, at that point. And so I just found another job working for customer service at a Mercedes dealer. Mm-hmm. And that was fun. I became a service advisor there and made good money. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I had done a long time ago, I think when I was like maybe 11 or 12, I did a ride along with I believe it was a DAI. So District Attorney Investigator.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is back in the old days. He was still driving a Celebrity Classic, right? The square Celebrity Classic.
Man.
With the hang light, right? I just remember he goes, hey, if you want to, see what it looks like, you hook it onto the windshield. Well, yeah, you pull it down. It's hooked underneath or in the glove box. And you hook it onto the forward of the windshield, and then it turns on, and then that's their little. But they were, pretty low key. They didn't have any, they weren't going code 3 in that car, anything.
Yeah.
So I did it right along with that, and he kind of showed me, and that was down at 850 Bryant. That's the old police station, San Francisco police station. So that kind of put a seed in me a long time ago. That was like one of those career days we got to do when we picked somebody to go with. And, I thought it was going to be like FBI agent or some special agent dude or whatever, and I got that guy. And that just always like put that seed in me for a long time. And I had friends that applied and didn't make it, or became officers, but in different departments. And then while I was working as a service advisor, one of my other friends suggested I apply to San Francisco, and I was like, I'm not thinking about it or anything, And I kind of just put it away and just put it out of my mind. And then I was with some friends, and we were at a party. It was a college graduation party, and this poor guy fell through the glass door of a Victorian house. So, you know, the Victorian houses in the city have steep stairwells when you first walk in, and then it's a nice glass door. Well, he fell through that. And I was coming back outside, and I was like, whoa, what's wrong with this guy? And he's bleeding from his ear. So I was like, oh, we need to help this guy. And I'm looking around, everyone's just kind of partying, they're not really paying attention. I was like, we got to go. And I was friend with my friend that was with me. She's a nurse, so she's like, we can take him to the general, and they have a free clinic. We'll take care of him, get him done. I was like, cool, let's go. As I was leaving, my friend shows up in a squad car. So, my friend is this. I realized it was somebody I knew, and I'd went to culinary school with him. So that switch clicked, you know, and then I was like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. And then that made me switch to applying to the police department. Putting, you know, at that time they were on a freeze, and then I just put an interest card saying I'm interested, and then put it in, and then about a year later, I think I got the application and then went into the academy.
That's awesome, man. You started in
2006.
Wow. How was the mood then? How was the mood different then?
The mood then was they needed hiring. So at that time, I think Heather Fong and then later Chief Sir were on a hiring search. So it was like we're down, and you know, Chief Sir was like, hey, I need to hire 1,000 officers within 5 to 6 years. That's my goal. And then and we just got put right through, and you know, we were rocking and rolling.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. How did you enjoy your first time being there as a police officer? Like, man, this is was it welcoming? How was the community feeling to you? Was it like, man, this is a really great career. I'm so excited to be in it.
I think I'm particular to it because I grew up in San Francisco, born, raised, and, you know, lived in the city. So like, I think that's not unique, but it's, you know, part of the whole thing. And then the other part is I was told all these places not to go in the city, and now I'm there working in some of these, you know, seedier parts of the city. They're more dangerous, and, you know, where crime is happening a lot of. So it was a toss up between, like, you know, yes, I was glad to be in the city. It was really the only department I applied to. I applied to one other one, didn't get in with that one, and I think they knew I was going to San Francisco, and I was happy to be there. And, you know, I took it one day at a time, try to enjoy it, but also like there's a lot of things going on that the average person just doesn't see, you know.
They don't. And then it's funny, we were talking about this before we started recording, and it's just, yeah, if people understood the things that, you know, the kinds of calls for service that we get every day, you know, there's the things you see on TV, there's the things that you see on Law and Order, and that can happen. But it's such a small percentage of what the calls for service actually are in the city. Most of them are more quality of life issues. And then you start realizing that, you know, your job as a police officer is really to improve the quality of life of the city. That's what the citizens expect of you. They don't necessarily care how many arrests you made or how many drugs you got off the street if it doesn't pertain to their quality of life issues. And it's an interesting thing because for a long time it was just, you know, police officers, we go and arrest the bad guys. That's what we do. And then the tables, they never really changed because it was always a quality of life, but the mindset as to what's more important. Is it like the crosswalks, or is it the people who are driving on a suspended license, whatever? And it's funny how as time has gone on, we've sort of seen that become more of a prominent thing, or at least I have. Have you seen that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and stuff has kind of spiraled into getting, you know, somewhat out of control with everything that's going on in the city, with homelessness. The crime is up. Those two things in general right there, you know, driving everything up. And then, you know, you have friends or tourists coming through and they're like, what's this going on over here? Why is there, you know, why is this place a mess? You know, it's full of crap, and somebody's living in front of $1 million condo, and you can't get rid of them. And you know, there's a line of tents booked underneath the freeway, and, you know, you try to help them. The hard part too is you try to help everyone, and some of them don't want to be helped. Mm-hmm. You know, that's an honest opinion that I dealt with. Is like, they don't want to be. They're like, I don't want your services, but you're here. You still are taking advantage of some of the services. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. It's a tough balance to help them. And then, you know, they just want to take advantage of everything.
Well, like in your opinion, of all the people that you contacted, what percentage would you say are people that legitimately wanted help and we were trying to get them what they needed versus the people like, I don't care what you offer me, I'm staying here? What would you say the ratio was?
Considering I ran into more people that didn't want help, but that's just my personal contact. But I'd say it's pretty low, yeah, as far as who wanted help.
Man.
They're just trying to take advantage of it, and that's just a balance the city has to work with. And the hard part too is you have people coming from all over the country as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of goes beyond even law enforcement or the problems that San Francisco faces. Yeah. It's kind of like a sentiment everywhere you look. There's some people who they will do the minimum amount that they can to get ahead in whatever industry that they're in. Yeah. And then there's people that want to work extra hard to get there. And then there's some people that would like to, but they don't have the tools that they need to go and be someone better. And it's those people there in the middle that were like, okay, if I can help you with the tools, you're going to take it and run with it. And then to see those people succeed in whatever area that is, that's like the most beneficial thing that I think society really wants. Yeah. Is that if there's somebody who wants help, but just need a little help with the tools, or if somebody wants to do better and they just need a little help with the tools that they need and we give it to them, that's going to do so many wonders for them and for society versus the people that were trying to force feed them all the tools and help whatever, and it's just not the same. They're like, okay, great, I'm still staying here.
Yeah, and what sucks is the men and women are working super hard to keep everything calm and cool and collected. Like they're trying to make the city great, but they're having a hard time with everything going on and these kind of just all the crime going on and then just not being able to seeing the same person over and over again. It's like, I arrested that guy last week and he's out and he's doing it again, and that's a tough thing to deal with, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But you did it for how many years?
About close to 16. I got hurt in between towards the end of that, and that's kind of why I left. But I enjoyed it, and kind of just want everyone to know, like, there's these men and women are working really hard. And, you got to kind of think outside the box of what they have to do, even me and my partner back in the, when we were on the footbeat, we came up with a job program for gangsters, That was something that we kind of thought outside the box of seeing the same person every day, a kid that was skipping school, hanging out with gangsters. And we were like, this is just going to continue if we don't stop it, right? And that was one idea that we came up with. How do we stop that? And it's like, you should get a job. If you don't want to go to school, then you should get a job. You're here at 12 noon in the middle of the day, hanging out with blah, 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 some older guys or the OGs or whatever it is. How do we get this person to stop, hanging out and going down the wrong path? And we came up with a program when we tried to make contact with people that were willing to hire them. And, try to find a funnel where they could go, okay, this kid, if he, and it was tough because you got to get him at that right time, right? The time where the fork in the road is like, I'm going to go this way or I'm going to go that way. And if we got someone and they got a job, they were off and running. And we, what's great is we kind of never saw them again, which was kind of like, hey,
that was the point.
Yeah, that was the whole point. And off and running. And a lot of times, sometimes we'll see them down the road somewhere else and they're like, hey, I got a job, and you were right. Like I was really going down the other way. And then sometimes we just weren't able to get somebody something, and then they went down the bad road, which is tough to see, or something happened to them and they didn't,
We had one person, same thing. She got addicted to the wrong substance and she was causing a lot of problems in the neighborhood. And there wasn't much that we could do initially because it's like a rotating door throughout the system is that if you put him in jail, they get right out, especially after Prop 47, which a lot of people have their opinions on in that thing. Yeah. And we're like, okay, how do we help her? Like, clearly she's living in her house, so she's not, like trying to trespass anywhere. But she's becoming a disturbance to the city, and then the neighbors are complaining, and our hands are tied what we can do. So we just kept making sure that we documented every time that we had a contact with her and what her behavior was. And over time, with that much time and effort, we were able to go to the county and say, that this person needs help. Here's how much Here's our calls for service for her. Here's what we've been dealing with. Here's how she's affected the neighborhood. Before the state said, okay, we needed to step in and we need to do some now because of this long track record that you guys have documented with her. And then one day she wasn't around anymore. So I think she made her last mistake. And eventually when the officers arrested her and she got put into the system, they're like, okay, you're staying here. We have to get you help. We need to get you cleaned up, whatever. And then I didn't see her for like 2 years. And then randomly she was driving down the street, didn't recognize her at all. And she waved to me, hi, Officer Acosta. Do you remember me? I'm like, who are you? And then she told me her name. I'm like, what, really? Like, how you doing? And she like totally different, cleaned up her act. She had her son with her and she was driving her car going to work. And she's like, thank you guys so much for doing what you did. I needed help and I wasn't in a position where I could accept it. I had to have you guys force it to me that way. And because you did that, I became a better person. I got off all that stuff that I was on. And now I'm a better role model for my son, who was growing up seeing this because he was 7 or 8 years old at the time. And now he's got a better relationship with his mother. And now they're doing better things in society. I'm not sure what she's doing now, but she's become a productive member. And a great example of like somebody, when you can devote that much time and effort to helping them get to where they need to get to, they can do great things. We all have the ability to do it. It's just a matter of, do we have the ability to put that much time and effort into that? Like your program as well. Getting that guy into a job where he can thrive, start making some money, and now he's not on the streets doing stupid stuff. And it's making the city, the streets safer with him not doing that. And he's also benefiting himself in society. So it ends up working great, but you're right. It's a lot of resources to pour into 1 or 2 people, which I know the city's probably. And
that's what's happening to, the homeless and everything else. The resources go into a person. And then if they don't want to do anything, then what? You're kind of left to
what do you do with that?
What do you do with that person? And it's all case by case, and you do know, like every person has their own issues, what they're dealing with, where they came from, what problems they have, how are we going to get them set back on track, and that's a huge task.
It's a challenge, and I know we're never going to be able to solve it sitting here. Many people who get paid way more than us, and politicians have tried, and it's just something that eventually is the right answer is going to happen. I don't know when that's going to be and what side of the argument that you're on, but it's something's going to have to happen eventually. But going back to your time there, it's during this whole time that you're serving the community in the city that you grew up in, being in law enforcement, where was your mindset at with your whole food thing? Was that put on hiatus? Were you still doing that at the same time?
Food was always on my mind. It's pretty easy to do that in the city. Because where you work, whether, in the Mission especially, which is the hotbed for food, especially in the industry, some of the hottest restaurants have opened in the Mission, and, whether they stayed or not, but a lot of chefs have come in and starred, become stars kind of, and the restaurants have come really well. So the food scene in general in San Francisco is huge, right? It's got San Francisco, LA, New York. Those are the 3 biggest cities we have, right? And so I got to see all of that all the time. So I was seeing, there's a new restaurant that just opened. I'd be on a call or something, and like you'd see
that place.
Well, you just kind of, out of your eye, you're like, oh, that's a new place. But let's try to grab lunch there some other time. People don't know we have a working lunch. We don't get a lunch. It's a working lunch. Correct. You get it when you get it. I've thrown a lot of lunch and a lot of coffee away.
Oh man, yeah.
And then I got smart and started carrying a leak-proof coffee cake cover tumbler, and there we go.
Learn my lesson.
But I think what's cool is I got to see a lot of businesses grow. I think that's something that I appreciate. So I got to see restaurants that were starting, realizing, this restaurant's been here a long time. So that kind of was always in the back of my mind, and then I was always kind of offered up to cook as well. Once they found out I could cook, the troops are, the troops and cops were like, oh, you're doing Sunday supper. I went to the first station I went to. Shout out to Steve. He knows exactly. If he ever listens to this podcast, I don't know if he will, but he's like, hey, we heard you can cook. And I was like, yeah, I can do a couple things. And he's like, well, it's Saturday. Tomorrow's Sunday. So we do Sunday supper on Sunday, and we usually have someone cook for the watch.
Yeah.
And the watch is about 10, for us, it's like 10 to 15 people. And he's like, well, can you do it? I was like, yeah. He's like, cool, you're up. So I was like, okay. And so I cooked actually at that time. This was probably 2007. So at that time, probably the Instapot was coming out pretty hot right then.
Thing.
Yeah. Mine broke. I got a new one, but it's killer. And so I just threw 5 pounds of pork shoulder in an Instapot, made it Kahlua pork, brought some steamed rice in, and then I threw cabbage at the end, so you kind of get that Kahlua pork feel going, and made that for them that Sunday, and they were like, "Oh, you're in, dude!
Wow,
you're in."
This was how many years in?
Barely. I was on probation, so a year in, basically.
You're sold now.
Yeah. And they're like, "Cool, around. Yeah, you're in." And then it kind of spiraled into other stuff. There's like rib cook-offs that we had. Anytime there was something going on, holiday party, whatever. And especially when I went to like my permanent station at Mission, I cooked a lot. I cooked all the time, every holiday. Because I wanted to do it too. It was a huge passion for me, but it's also like I really liked cooking for other people. I get joy out of that, and seeing them happy, and how hard everyone works, and to see them just come in for if they can stay for 10 minutes or 15 and sit down and have a nice meal, that's that makes me happy, and.
Now, did you compete with fire? Because some of those guys can cook.
On the rib cook-off stuff, there's some separate teams, but it was all in good fun.
Oh yeah, it's all in good fun. But
we
there's
got
still
the People's Choice Award though, which is the best one.
Is it?
You can the first place, second, third is all subjective, but when you get People's Choice,
that's the one.
That's the one.
So you got that one for the station.
Yeah, we got that for the station, and we're like, cool. We don't care about any of the other ones. People's Choice is what it is.
We always tell further, hey, you guys got all that time to cook. We have a few seconds, because then we got another call. The fact that you still won the competition in that way.
And they have some huge grills on their stations too.
Oh yeah. People know you guys. Some of these fire stations, like, wow, this is a full on like Gordon Ramsay kitchen in here. You guys don't play around, do you?
Yeah. I was like, man, I'm using like an old oven and old grill and. But you make it work. So I always enjoyed doing that. So I did, as many holidays or any off days that we had time to break out a meal and cook for everyone. And then I always try to make sure it wasn't just like protein, try to have like everything. And sometimes it'd be potluck. We got friends that, hey, there's different stuff that come through, and, you can make, Jamaican rice or, some awesome spring rolls or whatever it is, that all that stuff gets put together, and then everyone just like get a nice spread going,
Wow.
Yeah. I think the best one we had, there's a couple, but like, Dan will know, we did a Tur-duck-en. So
how did you do that?
So we didn't do it. Shout out to the butcher in the city that made it for us, but we ordered up a Tur-duck-en that was done. So if people don't know, it's a turkey, a duck, and a chicken all wrapped together. So it's layered in 3 layers, and then you roast that. And then when you slice it, you get a piece of turkey, a piece of duck, and some chicken. So
John Madden wasn't kidding around with that. That's an actual thing that people can. What does he do? Does the butcher like sew it together somehow?
So you see how the turkey's pretty big. So I think they debone the turkey, and then they everything gets deboned. So it's all one solid piece, and there's no bone, so you can slice right through it. So you.
Yeah.
Pretty cool thing. And then to do it at the station, people were like freaking out. They're like, "What is that?" I was like, "It's a Tur-duck-en."
They're like, "That thing exists?" Like,
I think we always did tri-tip and chicken. Chicken's like my favorite thing to cook. I think marinated chicken thighs on the grill.
Ooh, yeah, that's it's something. It's like the cheapest part of the chicken to get, I think, or maybe the legs. Either way, that's like the most juiciest, tenderest. Like, wow, if you do it right, you almost can't screw it up. But still, it's just, man,
it's good. So like I always had that passion, and then being able to do that, and then seeing some of the businesses that are growing in the city or coming up, whether it's coffee, shout out to Jacob at PHILZ, right? Like watch PHILZ coffee grow while I was there.
Wow.
When I was on the Footbeat, they had 4 locations, and shout out to them. They've got 80 locations now.
What was the first one?
24th and South Van Ness.
And that was in your district?
Yeah, that's the original location.
24th and Van Ness. I need to go check it out.
South Van
Ness.
Yep.
Right. Wow. I didn't mean, I never thought about it. I see PHILZ around here like it's no big deal. And I didn't realize, oh, they started here in the city.
Yeah.
This was their jam. This is, and in the mission
Blue
area.
Bottle as well.
Blue Bottle's another one?
Yeah.
That one that one
Blue
I
Bottle's become like a huge thing, and I think they got bought out recently. But yeah, they started in Fern Alley out of a garage.
People forget there's a lot of culinary history here in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, you know about the mission and the Hispanic food there, you know about Japantown and whatnot, but people forget like just coffee culture too. Like the things that started in San Francisco in terms of food and just in a different way of thinking, because we're so, we're the West Coast, so there's a lot of Asian influence over here.
Yeah.
We're also up the street from Mexico, so a lot of the Hispanic influence in there, and that mesh pot of different styles of cooking kind of all come together here that you wouldn't get if you were in the Midwest necessarily, or Chicago.
Yeah. And kind of getting privy to that and like seeing that kind of stuff, or seeing a restaurant or a friend's place, or going to different spots. You're like, oh, that's there. Now I know. Let me write that down and put that down and back and go visit later, when I'm off or whatever, and go have a good dinner somewhere. So like that was always in the back of my mind. So food was always there. Even, my old partners will tell me like, oh God, what place are we trying today? Or, cause I would never want to go to the same place all the time. Right. Like I get bored, or not bored, but I just be like, hey, I want to try something new. So that's always fun to do as well, especially when if you hear about it, the chatter starts coming out. And this was like before a lot of the Instagram stuff, but like you just hear chatter from Yelp or, one of these, like whatever it is, right? The news and the Chronicle. And it's like, oh, this place is hot. This place just opened. Everyone loves it. It's like, oh, I think we got to go check it out. And it was, especially, I got lucky. It was in my district, which a lot of times it was. I was like, let's try to go get a meal there, So spoiled for sure, but just exposure to like Peruvian, Mexican, Japanese, barbecue, it's a list is long, and fortunate. So like, that's what's cool to see. And so I was always around it. I kept relationships with a lot of the owners, when they first open, because a lot of times I go there, especially if they're in my district, go there and say, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? Just so you know, where you are can be kind of dangerous at night. Just so just keep your eyes out, keep your eyes peeled, kind of give them the lowdown, like how to secure your place, especially if they're brand new. So we would kind of do that and help them out. And they appreciated that. And then, they always remember you when you come back, and, I'd be a customer just as much as just trying to help them when I was, in the department. So I kind of, I think, as like relationships are super important, and you got to keep them up and just keeping in a good rapport and trying to help them in general, just trying to help.
It's just that's really big. The idea of the real community policing, just walking into an establishment in your district and saying, hi, I'm Officer So-and-so. Here's some tips for you. If you need anything, call us and we're here to help, or right down the street, or here's my normal beat time, whatever it is. And, it's unfortunate that because staffing is so low, there's really no foot beats anymore.
It's tough.
They just don't have the time to, they don't have the manpower to staff that. And that if we could fix that in the city, that would change a lot.
Yeah. And they know it works. The foot beat really works really well.
Oh yeah.
And I'd say that for any department that can do it, it works really well.
Really good. Not only as an officer, you get your steps in for the day if you're into counting all that, but the neighbors see you. When they see cops walking around, they just feel safer. Whether or not is that going to stop a criminal or not, I don't know. But the fact is that they see you. Yeah. And the businesses see you, they just feel safer at the very least.
It does, because you're there every day. So like there's a difference between you driving by, and we all know if we have a commute, we drive by stuff all the time. And then one day you drive by and you're like, I never knew that was there. And I've been driving by 100 times. Well, when you're walking by something, you get to see at a slower rate, and you can kind of look around. And you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly where that is. Like you could just send me a picture of a business without the streets, and I'd be like, I could tell you where that business is, right? And that's getting to know the district really well, and then that helps, because you'll come, there'll be like a patrol call, and then the foot beat will walk over and go, I know these guys right here. I can tell you who they are.
Man, it's
and that helped a lot, right? It helped progress my career and understand it, and be able to just be helpful and be a crime fighter, you know? So
I'm guessing that's probably one of the best parts of your job is the ability to go out and do that.
Yeah.
Which is like the essence of community policing. What a lot of people want to be police officers for is to go and feel like they mesh with the community, help them out, and know that they're a resource if something actually happens. And then during this whole time, again, 15 years in the industry. Yeah. It's a long time. And, you know, thank you for being, you know, in the industry that long. Where were you at with your food? Was it just a passion at that point, like, and enjoy eating it? Or were you already thinking in advance, like, what's my next step?
That was not in the plan. You know, I was easily going to be a 20-year career police officer, you know, at least they can do 20, 25, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I was in for the long haul. In 2019, I fell with all my gear and got hurt, tore everything in this left arm, and I dealt with it ever since. And so with that, with all those injuries and dealing with it, you know, I ended up leaving the department. Mm-hmm. So I ended up retiring out and still dealing with a lot of the injuries even today. And through that process, you know, when you lose kind of everything, which I was on trajectory to just be, you know, doing what I was doing, you have to take a step back. I think that was the hardest part, was not being able to do your favorite things. You know, if you lose a use of a ligament, it's a huge deal and a huge process, and then just not knowing what's next. So I went through that process. So from, you know, going through, and then in the middle of COVID happened as well. So there's a lot going on, you know. Mm-hmm. I lost my mother in 2019, same year I got injured. So it was a rough year for me, for sure.
Wow.
And, you know, so I was dealing with a lot and starting to just seek out what I could do next. So that was the toughest part. And then I started looking, you know, shout out to my wife and a few other friends. They're like, hey, you need to, you know, you have this other lane, this other passion with food. And I was playing around with Instagram before. I was like, a lot of times I would just, you know, show a cool restaurant and, hey, I had this dish there. Kind of early days of vlogging, but just, you know, usually just pictures, because Instagram then was just pictures before they went to full video now. Mm-hmm. And I would just show that. And then my wife one day was like, you cook every day and it looks great. Why don't you show that why don't you show your cooking? So I was like, all right, I'll start showing my stuff. So then I start playing with recipes at home, and then cook something, try to take a cool picture, post it, and everyone's like, oh, that's cool. What else you got? You know? And so it kind of spiraled more and more and more. I was like, oh, that's more fun. It is my cooking rather than promoting a restaurant that, you know, I get nothing out of, even though it helps them, but mm-hmm. I'm not getting anything out of it, right? It's all for them.
Well, before we get into that, I kind of want to go back to after the injury, because you said something there that was really impactful, that not only did you have this pretty much life-changing injury that you had to deal with, at the same time, you lost your mother. And this is right before COVID too, correct? This was
during, pretty much.
It was during COVID. So yep. you want to talk about...
Yeah, you're right. Year before. Yeah.
The year before. So yep. You want to talk about having just life throw unexpected curveballs at you at the same time. One's bad enough, to have multiple. Like, how did you mentally pull yourself through it? Or more importantly, how did you keep yourself from getting into a really bad place?
It's tough. I had to dig deep for sure. Me and my brother, I have an older brother, and we kind of had each other. We had to be each other's back. And then with my wife, with her support, and then just reaching out to other friends, and reaching out to some relationships that I've worked, that I've kept, they're high level people, right? They're maybe a pro athlete, or they're a doctor, or they're, a chiropractor, or somebody in the field that I would need help in. I reached out to them and like, what do I need to do? And they're like, this is what you need to do. It's happened to me. You'll get through it. And so reaching out to those individuals helps kind of pull that together. And I didn't want to be, I didn't want everyone to feel sorry for me, but they kind of did, just because they knew what was going on. But I was also like, okay, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to rebuild? And knowing that it was going to take a long time, I ended up having 2 surgeries, and it's, still dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of stuff going on with the body. So reaching out and building those like relationships, like I was talking about, helped pull that more, getting more positivity from them. They're like, hey, I've had a, torn ligament. You have to get through the PT, or try to keep your diet, a certain way, or, try not to gain too much weight, or, I talked to one trainer and he didn't have to say anything to me. Like, he doesn't know me from Adam, but I DM'd him one day and I was like, hey, what do I do? I'm freaking laid up here. And he's like, you have 2 legs, another arm, use them. Like, go for a walk, go hit the, if you can if you can bear standing sitting on an exercise bike, move those legs. I was like, he's right. He's totally right.
That's just so powerful, because it sounds like you didn't want anybody's sympathy, but you wanted to know.
And it's easy to want it because you're like, because that's the first thing that comes up. Like, where you been, what's happened to you. And, and I will tell everyone, but it's like, I don't want it to be the thing. Right. I was like, I try to find the next thing. And so going through that process, of just trying to stay resilient, I think that's a big word that's come up a lot. And, just trying to stay the path and figure this out and stick it out.
Say what you want about society and the way that we tell people that they're supposed to do. I think it's really big for guys, especially that if we get into a very bad spot, like yours is a great example of a lot that happened to it at the same time. We really don't want anybody's sympathy. We really want to know, okay, this is what I'm doing. How do I get through? What are the steps I need to take? Tell me how to fix it. And by someone telling you as simply as you have 3 other ligaments, use them, go for a walk. That's going to put you in a better spot. Say, okay, go out there and do it. When you could have easily have sat home and said, the world's against me. I need Medicare, or I need the government to pay for me. Like, no, I got other things working. What can I use in my body now that's working to make myself better here? Unfortunately, going through with your mother passing on, like it's an easier one for people to say, wow, now it's all piling on me. The world's against me. Like, no, it's a tragedy, but how do I get through it? I have to think about, how do I be strong for my family or my wife or whatever it is, because they're relying on me. And to get yourself focused on what you need to do to get through it kind of helps us, especially as dudes, get through it faster rather than just waiting for a lot of sympathy. And no disrespect to anybody that needs therapy, because I know therapy is really important. It's definitely a part of it. I just find out that for guys, it's like, okay, tell me how to fix this. This is what I need to do. Here's my plan. Good. And I'm going for it. I get my mind fixed on where I have to go, and I'm going to get there. And to see you pull yourself through that, it's an incredible story. And I'm glad that you said it, because people need to hear it. You think you're going through a lot in life, and some people probably are, but here's what this guy went through. That's a lot to go through at the same time.
Yeah.
And here's how he was able to get out of it. It's incredible stuff, man.
Thanks. I mean, I know there's people that have gone through a lot more, so it's it's one of those things. But I think pulling together and willing to ask for help is a hard thing to do, especially for us guys. We you don't want to show a sign of weakness, but part of it is you are weak at that particular time. You are vulnerable. You are hurt. You are damaged, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you pull that together and just understand, what you need, and try to find that, and then try to find another passion. And that's why I was like, I digged into the food, and everyone else was telling me that too, shout out to those folks that helped me figure out what else I could do, mentally. Cause I was like, I got to use my mind now. Like, my body's kind of jacked up. So
yeah.
What can I do in the meantime and build on that? And that's kind of the idea for the podcast. So I started thinking about, before it became a podcast, thinking about just people's origin stories. Everyone has an origin story. And I was like, I could do this with food. This would be great, because food connects us all. We all, if we sat down, break bread, and have a meal together, like, we already built a connection, regardless where you come from, what job you have, what culture you're at. All that is kind of just broken down right away when you have a meal together. Mm-hmm. And that's super cool. And then with people that have their origin story, you kind of get an idea of what I like to get out of them. And I'll explain the podcast in a second, but I started thinking about that. So food origins, and that's kind of the idea where I got the name. And then, I have a couple friends that have podcasts, and they were like, yeah, you need to do that. That's what you need to do. like start your own podcast. I was like, me? Looking at this, and here I am, it's kind of crazy to talk about, like almost 30 episodes in, started end of 2021, doing them, bought the equipment and started, and then, called it the Food Origins Podcast, and then just start cranking and started pulling those relationships that I built over the last 20 years. These are people from all over the place. If you look at some of the guests, they're people I've known for a long time, whether I worked in the city or it was the cooking days sometimes. I even had a couple of my culinary classmates on because they were like, yeah, for sure. Because one, I know you, and two, I have a lot to share as well. And you kind of have that vibe, once you have that little bit of rapport and relationship with them, it's easy to talk to them,
Yeah.
And they want to share what they have to offer. And what's cool is I get to show their business, what they're up to these days. And a lot of times you see a huge transition as well. So I kind of show, I'll kind of explain the podcast, but basically it's their origin story themselves with food, and then kind of tying it into their life and how that's impacted them. And then we get into, their favorite meals, best and worst. Sometimes there's stuff they hated and they like now. Maybe they still don't like it.
Yeah.
And then we get into, if they've traveled a lot, then maybe they'll share some travel stories. And then if they have a food related business and they want to talk about it, then we'll talk about that and get into, their menu, whether they're, if they're creating a full menu, or they're a coffee roaster. So we get into their coffee breakdown, showing their process, where it comes from, what coffee they have, and just kind of, that story. And then what's cool is I like gear. I think if you are in law enforcement, a lot of us like gear because we need proper items to carry with us. And
we got to have our Batman tools.
Yeah. So we get into, having quality gear. And so like I usually have them discuss their favorite tools. And it could be anything from, a dehydrator to a multi-tool to a chef knife, whatever it is. Right. So kind of get into that and what that gets you, why it's their favorite every day. And also they get to shout out their local spots, which I think is cool because, here I can tell you my favorites, but to have someone that I haven't been able to talk to and they drop, a bunch of locations that I would never have known. I had a guest, shout out to Uli in LA. He's one of the musicians he's one of the band members for Oza Motley. He dropped 30 locations right on the top of his head because he's in LA and he's actually traveled the world. So like, he was like, yeah, what do you want? Do you want tacos? But what kind do you want? Do you want al pastor? Do you want carnitas? Do you want, chalupas? Do you want, and he's like, just start breaking it down and goes, yeah, that's this place, this place, this place. And then what I do for that, so you don't have to go back and try to listen to the episode, I'll put those in the show notes and kind of jot those down. And then you can just go look in the show notes and go, oh, there's that restaurant that so-and-so mentioned. Now I can go check it out and then leave the link for it, and it's in there.
That's so smart because it helps people when they go to an episode. Okay, what are the hit points? Oh, here's a hit point right here. He talks about this. I want to hear about tacos al pastor or whatnot. Yeah. Who was your first guest?
Courtney Henderson.
And she's from where?
He is.
Or he is from where? Sorry about that, Courtney.
Yeah. It's all right. Courtney is from Albany, Georgia, actually. He's in San Diego now. So shout out to Courtney. Courtney is one of the people that put me on the path for the podcast. So shout out to you, man.
Well, talk about that first episode. I mean, the idea, because people get intimidated.
So the idea came through a couple people. I don't necessarily have to drop all their names, but I can tell you about them off air. But Courtney was definitely a key component in me starting the podcast. My wife, Courtney, and another guy named Mike Lover. So those three were a key component in me saying this is a completely another path you can take. It's completely away from what you were doing before. So no one can tell you what to do, kind of, And so they're like, you can take this passion. You clearly know food. And Courtney was like, you clearly know food. I'm always asking you where to eat every time I visit the city or when you come down to San Diego, which, I visited there before. It's an amazing relationship I have with him. We met working together. I was volunteer for a conference for one of Jocko's musters. So shout out to Jocko Willink and Echelon Front. Like I worked a conference for them and got to kind of, see how he works and how the team, puts everything together. And they're an awesome group of people teaching awesome stuff. And Courtney was there as a professional photographer, and he's a professional MMA photographer. So that's how we met. And he was there shooting, some photos, and then we just started talking, and we've been friends ever since. So Courtney put me on the path and was like, hey, you clearly know food. Why don't you do a podcast? And I was like, yeah, that's something that I was thinking about. And, even my wife was mentioning that, and my buddy Mike was mentioning that. And they both were, between 3 people, 2 people that already had podcasts. And, my wife was like, you kind of need that. Sometimes you need a little shove over the edge and take the jump. And so then I was like, okay, full bore. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. Bought the equipment and then just started picking out who I wanted. And Courtney's like, I'll be your first guest. Come down to San Diego. He has a photography studio. He's like, we'll do it right here. He's like, bring all your equipment. We'll test it all out. Make sure it works. Make sure we're get the lowdown. So shout out to Courtney for putting me on the path for it. He has his own podcast. It's called The Boisterous Boys. And they do everything from MMA and it's fight talk. I'd rather say fight talk because they go over boxing and some other stuff. But yeah, so shout out to Courtney. He was my first guest. Got to talk about, his upbringing in Albany, and then, kind of that outline that I talked about, just, sharing what you like and what you don't like, and then all your local spots and stuff like that.
Wow. Now, what was more nerve-wracking for you, recording the episode or pressing submit when it comes to actually posting it out in the world?
Submit, probably. Yeah, submit. Yeah, Courtney said he was impressed. He was like, you kind of already got it going already. He's like, you were pretty good on the mic. And I was like, well, maybe that comes from listening to some of the podcasts and kind of understanding, like, I don't want to do these certain things, and I'm sure this as you get through each one. You're like, okay, the last one I was like, I spoke too much, or I interrupted too much, or and podcasting is hard. It's so new to me. I'm still new at it, and like learning the little intricacies and recording. I lost an episode due to a power outage.
Oh man.
So I always have a backup. I have backup power now, so I use, and you could probably pick this up if you want to use it, but I use a power battery backup surge protector. So it has a battery in it, and it plug it in, and it'll hold 15 minutes of power. So if this whole building goes,
it just went out, and
you're not able to press stop, because that's what happens. I the building I was in, I lost the entire episode, and it was 45 minutes in.
Wow.
And it was gone. And what's kind of, and then, like you were talking about, like, you just, okay, it's gone. There's nothing I could do with it. And it kind of turned out okay because, shout out to my friend Jose and Chef TJ, it ended up having another guy on, and the 2 of them ended up, talking about where they're from. They're from Saipan. And so an episode that didn't get done kind of got turned around into, adding another guest and then sharing an even bigger story. So
wow, that's
you just kind of work with what you got, and then you laugh. I can laugh now about it. I was not laughing then. I was like embarrassed and like disgusted and going through the motions, right? And but yeah, that's how I got started and just started recording.
Well, I'll tell you on a side note, like, I am my biggest critic with this whole thing. And if you go back and look at my first episodes, my guests were great. They still are. But I didn't know anything about this video camera, where it's supposed to go out. The lighting was totally off. I had, what do you call, like, whitewashed backgrounds. It just looked horrible. I had one episode where the camera was tilted slightly and I didn't catch it. I was like, oh, how do you fix this? So if you watch the episodes, like number 3 or something, it's like kind of like off kilter. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to make sure I fix that for next time. And even all the equipment here, it's like these things are recording audio, but they're on batteries. So if it goes out, at least I have some sort of audio, even though it's going to sound really echoey, but it could finish up if I don't do it here. This computer here has the battery pack. So if this goes out, at least I can save it really quick and say, well, I got that part in, that part went out, at least, and I can just overlap that. And I'm like, well, these are the things that I've learned, like you, and doing several episodes. Like, yeah, okay, this is how I have to get better. And one thing we both have in common is that, do you know how many podcasts there are out there, give or take?
2 million?
It's around 2 million. And do you know how many make it past episode 3?
200,000?
Yeah, exactly.
I read the stat.
You saw the
you
stat.
might have posted the stat, and I actually
did.
might have screenshotted it because it made me feel pretty good. Because I think I think I told my wife about it, but yeah, the stats. There's 2 million podcasts. 200,000 get made past 5 episodes, right? I forget 3 episodes, and then like it dwindles down to about 20,000 have more than
27 episodes.
There you go.
So we're both in the top 1% of podcasts. Yeah. If everybody wants to be specific about that we're still going, and because you realize after you've been doing this for several episodes, you either like it or you hate it. And if you hate it, you're just going to stop there.
Yeah.
But if you like it and you want to continue going because you realize the bigger message of what you're trying to do, that it's not about the money, it's not about getting famous overnight, that it's actually about a message, or in your case, a passion that you have that you want to share with the world.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to pick all this stuff up and go somewhere, especially if you're going to fly somewhere and putting it all on the airplane and then setting it up somewhere where you don't know where and then hope everything works out specifically. And then when you actually press the record button, it's, what do I say? What are we going to talk about? Are people going to like this? You start asking yourself all those questions that really don't matter, because what matters is that you press the record button and that you're going to go out there and actually do it. And even in the conversation that we're having here, I don't have a script over these are the questions I'm going to ask Dave about this whole thing. I have an idea, but I let the conversation flow organically. And I think that's the best part about doing a show like this, is that the more genuine and authentic you are, the more your guests trust you, the more things come out you didn't expect. And that's what people pick up on when they listen to the episodes. Like, wow, I'm learning more here than just the basic 1, 2, 3 of how to do something. That part's important, but I get to feel like I know this person. I get to feel like I'm part of that conversation, which is why I add the video in, so you can kind of see our facial reactions that you might not be able to get if you just listen to it on audio. And it helps bring everything together because you create an audience that believes in the same message that you do. And that's all you really want, is you want a core audience that believes in what you do. Let them help you spread it out there as they get more comfortable with it. But it's been a great experience for me, and I can tell it's been a great experience for you. But we can be our biggest critic, but never let that count us out, because there's only so many of us that actually have made it this far in our episodes.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, where did you go from after your first episode? What was your mindset in, okay, I got this experience with Courtney. I'm into it. I'm not into it.
I think it was really good. My brother was down there as well, and he's like, hey, I'll jump on there too. And I was like, really? Okay. And so that was a nice episode, talking about our childhood, talking about our mom. So we dedicated that one to our mom. And so that was a really good episode. And then I was kind of off and running. So I was like, okay, I made a list. I had a list already. I still have, it's growing every day, of what businesses, what people, and I think it's not so much a business. I think my podcast is the people in general. Like, their business is second. I don't go, oh, because they have this business, I want to talk to them. It's like, no, I want to talk to the person behind all that, and then everyone gets to know them about it. So I kind of went through the list of people, and I was like, what do I want to share from what what their story is, their origin story. And a lot of times it's, we look for something cool, but it's unique, but it's just the people I knew already. So I just started, let's do the people I know already, so they'll be comfortable with me interviewing them. We have that kind of rapport already. The ice is broken. They don't have to go, oh, I don't know this guy. Like, why does he want to talk to me? What's he going to ask me? So I would give an outline, kind of, what I told you, like, this is what the podcast is about. This is what I want to share. This is what I want people to know about you. And then you're free to, like, give advice, give promotions, talk about your business, tell us some stuff we don't know, And so I kind of went through that, and then it's become, and I'm still seeking out the people that I want initially. And those are in process of scheduling and just trying to land them. And, as you know, I don't have a studio. So, like, I haven't figured out where that's going to be and how do I want to have that set up. I just been going on location. So I go on location, I set everything up myself. So if anyone's out there that's a media guy, I need a media guy to help me kind of do some around the scene stuff. Because lately I've been doing it all myself. Set up the roadcaster, set up the mics. Now that I've gone to video, I set up one camera. But it would be nice to have someone else kind of doing those things, but also, like, being able to see us and take photos and, like, do some extra content for the guest as well. Like, a lot of these guests are high level restaurateurs, and I want people to see what they're doing, and they want to show it too, So,
oh yeah. Well, I'd be happy to help you out with the network that I built in terms of helping you get a studio or in terms of people that can help with the videography because it's a creator economy now. And we're learning this. You know, it's no longer back in the day you just got a job like our dads did. You worked there for 30 years, blue collar work, good, decent, stable pay, and then you take care of the family with that. Especially around here with just how much everything costs in Silicon Valley. It really is a creator economy. So if you can find a talent that you can put out there that people will enjoy, you can make a good living off of that. And it's amazing how this platform that we're doing here, who would have thought about this 10 years ago?
And I'm still learning business in general. I've always worked for someone else, so working for myself is all new to me. So I'm learning that. I'm trying to learn from other people, you know, the pros at it, the guys that are doing really well, and learn the ins and outs, and learning to, you know, create a list, you know, a business. How do I monetize a podcast? My podcast is not monetized. I have no sponsors. So, you know, everyone thinks, oh, you got a new job. You got this podcast. It must be rocking and rolling. How much do you get paid? I'm like, nothing right now. It takes time to build the audience, and, you know, it'll come. You just have to keep working at it. You know, it's unless you get fortunate, you get exposed or something, and you get some exposure, maybe you'll pick up an early sponsor, but most of the time it's down the road, you know?
Yeah, it's like any startup company. When you first begin this thing, you're not making any money. Nobody knows you. You know, you're asking them to spend 30 minutes. How much are your episodes? About 30 minutes long?
They're about an hour. I keep them around an hour. And then, you know, if they're shorter, longer, I let that happen.
So what we realize is we're asking complete strangers to spend an hour of their time, or in my case, maybe 2 hours of their time, to listen to somebody who they don't know, speak to somebody else that they don't know. And you really understand that it is about building the audience first. Because with 8 billion people in the world there's going to be somebody else who knows more about what I talk about than I do, who might be famous, or like a Joe Rogan or whatnot, that people just want to relate to because they know that. In some podcasts, people want to go on for the guests. So if you get if you get like Michael Mina on your show, or if you get one of the other big name chefs around here to come on, people might listen to your show for that person, but is it going to get them to keep coming back to you? And it is all about building the audience. So once you understand what your why is, what you believe in, and you can convey that message out there on all your social media platforms, now people start saying, okay, I know who Dave is. I kind of know what he's doing it. I want to follow that path. I like hearing this podcast. And they start listening more and more and more. So this is why I told you I played the long game. I'm not thinking 6 months from now. I'm thinking 10 years from now. What does this look like? It's a long-term investment. But the more you do it, the more better you get at it, the more people you meet, the bigger your network gets. It just becomes a much bigger thing that any startup company will tell you. When I first started, it was nothing. Now I'm over here, but I had to take the grind. I had to do those steps in the beginning to get to the point where I'm at now. And then you find out with monetization, it's not just worrying about AdSense or sponsorships. They can make you some money, not a lot. And then the amount of work you have to put into to get that money may not be worth it. But then you start seeing, what have you done on your show that people want to emulate? The fact that you have the courage to get in front of a microphone is a skill that a lot of people would like to have, and they get intimidated by this thing right here, like, oh, no one wants to hear me, whatever. And if you could find a way to help people get on that better, you'd be surprised how many people around here. I was surprised about how many people around here are like, dude, I would like to do something like that. I have no idea where to start. You've done it. Help me out with that. So I've seen how this entity here can grow into a different area where I'm building a skill here that people want to get. And if they're already audience members that believe in the message that you're doing, they want you to teach them, not the guy on TV who says, you know, he has all this, he can get you all this. They're relatable to you. You're their audience, and they want to see how you did it because they believe in you. So there's so many different ways that this thing can grow. But the fact that you're still doing it, that's the first step right there. I'm excited to see where the Food Oceans podcast is going, because I got some ideas already of who you're going to get on and what are you guys going to talk about.
And like you were talking about chasing some of the more notable people. They're in the back of my mind as far as who I want on, but it's also the local business too. Like, I have my local coffee roaster on. I've had restaurants that I've frequented in the past. So a lot of times I've been a customer for years, not like, oh, I just went there the other day and then scoped it out and I was like, all right, I'm going to get them on the podcast. No, I've known them they recognize me right away and they go, hey, how you doing? You know? And then I was like, hey, I've got this new project. You remember what I was doing before? They're like, yeah, well, what happened? I was like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm doing this. and I want to talk to you about it. And then I haven't had really anyone say no, because I have already had that relationship with them. They understood who I was. They know I'm a good dude. I'm just, I have good intentions, and I'm just like, hey, I want to share your story. This is what I'm doing. And it's a new project. I'm doing it all on my own. There's no, I'm not trying to get anything out of it. Maybe a free meal. No, just kidding. But, I think that's kind of the premise behind it. So I started doing that, and that's how I built the first, 10, 20 episodes is around a lot of people. And I'm still going as far as who's around me. So I'm kind of going around me, and then it's branching out to, eventually out of state and the country. And then, it'd be cool to see worldly stuff too. But yeah, that's kind of where it's building.
Well, this didn't, it surprised me and then it didn't, but people like to talk about what's important to them. And if you get someone on, like just me talking to you right now, this is what's important to you. It's the Food Origins podcast. You know it, you live it, you breathe it. This is your project. This is what you want to do. Yeah. If I sat here talking to you about how to build a shelf or whatever, it just wouldn't, it's not important to you. You'd be like, okay, well, I used to do that back in the day, but it doesn't really, this is my thing now. So when I believed in that and said people want to talk about what's important to them, and I started asking people about, hey, I want to talk to you about this because I know it's important to you. It gave them the courage to want to come on, whether it's a business or a passion. They're like, yeah, I want to talk about that because that's important to me. And the more I did that, the more of a catalog of people that I had. So when I approach somebody else who maybe is a little hesitant or they're a little curious, they can go back and see all the work that I've done. Like, oh, you've been doing this for a while. This is how your episodes have progressed. I know that person. Wow, you made them look good. I'm going to go talk to them. How was your experience on the Real Talks on the Rocks? Let me tell you something about Mike. He had water here for me. He greeted me at the door. All these little experiences that we know just being in law enforcement that people pick up on. Now your guests who are a little apprehensive, but like, okay, I'm going to give him a shot because I've heard nothing but good things, and I can see great things. That only comes because you keep doing the episodes. Yeah. And then people just start saying, wow, okay, this is something that I want to be a part of. If you were brand new, like your episode 1, 2, or 3, it's a lot harder. So you really have to make sure that you may have to talk to people you've been knowing for a while because at least they know you and they trust you. They're not worried about it. Yeah. And then the more you do that, now you can get some people who are maybe on the fence, like, what is this doing for me? And then to be able to say, I want to help you promote your business. You're doing great things at this restaurant here. People need to hear about it. You could spend money on Yelp ads or whatnot, but I want to be able to have your voice out there so people can hear from the master chef himself or herself. This is how I created my own business, my restaurant. This is why it's important to me. And it just clicks more like, yeah, I can't put that on a Yelp ad. That just no one's going to see it that way. But on a podcast, oh, yeah. So, yeah, that people relationship that we learned just being in law enforcement, going back to being on the footbeat, saying hi to the restaurateurs, saying hi to the people as you walk down the street and they see you there, that trust that you build up, which is a fundamental thing of why I do what I do here. It's about building trust with the guests. Remember I told you about 45 minutes or so, things start to open up. We've been doing this about an hour and 15 minutes. Things just open up. It's like a social phenomenon that I've seen happen every single time because we're into the conversation. And I learn more about what you're doing. And it gets me excited. It gets me hungry, first of all. Yeah. But it gets me excited to say, yeah, someone else out there has a similar passion to me. We want to share other people's messages. And how do we do that? And by me and you sitting here talking about it, we're getting better just getting the information out there. Yeah. So it's an awesome thing, man. So now going back to the Food Origins podcast again, what is the future holding? What do you got up your sleeve?
Just more guests for sure. Always. It's going to video. So working on that,
That's a big step.
That's
a good one.
Step to be on video and making sure everything's set up right. Learning YouTube, because if it's going to be on YouTube, it's got to have a certain setup and learning that, but also trying to keep it simple. That stuff's expensive. So I'm just keeping things simple. And then, going to video, right now, still doing them on location. Got some ideas on how I can tour around, possibly an adventure van, maybe set up. That way I could get to locations and not be in a rush to leave or go. That's something I'm thinking about doing. There's a lot of contacts I've met outside, so I can reach out to them, and how the network just grows. Yep. But also just being somewhere and then not having to leave right away and be like, okay, I can do 3 podcasts in 1 week, or whatever it is. Or what also I kind of want to do is spend some time with the guest. A lot of my guests, like I said, are pros at what they do, and so like being able to, like, I still love to cook. So it's not just me just hearing about the food. I still want to do it. So if they're really good at making bread, I want to learn how to make bread. Or if they're really good at making pizza, I had Lars Smith, the State of Mind Pizza in Los Altos. He's got 2 other locations. Lars is awesome. So shout out to Lars. I definitely want to come back to him and learn pizza. He's won, competitions for pizza in Italy, And so when you see someone that at that high level, you want to learn from them too, right? Like it's a different card to get in your pocket. So I want to go back and do those things. Well, I need some media. I need someone else to, kind of shoot that content too. So kind of working on that end. And that's a selfish thing too, is where I get to learn as well. And, you guys can watch me screw up or not, but I want to learn those things on a personal basis because I still want to grow my cooking repertoire. Like I haven't cooked professionally in a long time. I can cook, or I'm all right, but I haven't been in the kitchen in a while.
I will tell you one thing, though. Don't chase perfection because nobody cares about if you're perfect.
Yeah.
You're going to screw up, and that's what humanizes you. That's what makes you relatable. Oh, I put too much flour in this yeast or whatever, or the camera was off slightly, like I told you about.
I've started to do that more. Like I posted a burnt dish. Like it wasn't perfect. It was burnt. And I posted there, it's burnt. And this is what happens sometimes. It still tastes good for the most part. Yeah. You might have to, the old days of scraping off the toast, right? Burnt the toast, you got to scrape it off. So, that's all part of the learning process. I started making tortillas, delving into my wife's side. She's Mexican and I look Mexican all the time. I get mistaken for it all the time. I'm sure you know that. But I started making tortillas, and tortillas are not easy to make. Some people can do them really easily. It took me a while just to get them to, that final the satisfaction of getting them to poof up in the comal. But I use a cast iron pan as my comal, and so I'll make the dough, and then I made some yesterday, and the satisfaction of seeing it rise is all worth the time, and then just, a little bit of butter.
There's nothing like fresh homemade tortillas. My mom used to make them. I still ask her every now and then. I go to her house. Hey, nope, she doesn't want to do it anymore because it is a lot of work to get the batter out there, the rump and the balls, and then you have to have the right butcher block with the roller, and then you're turning them, you're flattening them, you're turning them, you're flattening them, and then you throw them on the grill. Yeah. And man, a freshly cooked tortilla, there's nothing like it. Yeah. And you're right, throwing the butter on there or the cheese, whatever it is, and it's just, man, it melts in your mouth. They're not good 3 days later because they're fresh, but man, that first, I gotta convince my mom to start making them again.
Yeah, I can teach you how to make them too.
No, I don't have the space in my kitchen to be able to lay everything out. All right, I'm making tortillas because then if I make them, I'm only gonna make a few that I'm gonna eat. So it's just okay. I'll go to Whole Foods and buy the ones in the bag.
Should have brought you some today then.
Ooh, that would have been awesome if you would have brought me that
next time.
Yes.
But I think that's the progression with that side of things with the guests. So learning from their specialty, going back to the coffee roaster and watching them roast coffee, like teach me how to roast coffee. Like, how do you know the color? How do you know how much heat? How do you know, when it's ready? Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to do those things, and collaborate with those guys on that and gals, and then just branching out the guests, right? Like, so it's, if you guys look at my guest list, they're not all chefs. Everyone's from all over the place, tech guys to, guys that, I just interviewed a baker. I just interviewed a guy that does Japanese Wagyu. So my friend Sean of Papa Wagyu. So and also just been doing a lot of networking, and I'm sure you're doing the same, is who can I connect with that I really like? And I'm just going to, and doing it face to face though, not over a phone. I try not to do a cold email or cold phone call, right? Cause it's not enough. So I'm trying to get out there and meet people and create that rapport with them and build a relationship, and they know that it's genuine. And I'm just like, hey, I just want to share your story. This is what I'm doing. This is what the Food Origins podcast is all about. And then being able to share everything they're doing. And a lot of times I'm already a customer. I already know about their business, right? Like I've eaten there, I'm working on meeting with a lot of the products that I've already been using. So that's another thing I've built over time. And shout out to Instagram, man. You can meet a lot of amazing people through, Instagram just using their stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And they appreciate it, and then you get feedback, and sometimes they'll send you stuff or whatever, and because they know you're going to use it and they know you love it, and all you're going to do is talk about it, right? Word of mouth is like the best promotion ever, right? Yeah, word of mouth and physical like use of the product, seeing it done on a dish. They're like, hey, this guy made such and such,
Yeah.
And then it spirals from there. The network spirals from there. Like I have 3 companies off the top of my head I could tell you that they've been super supportive of me through the last few years, watching me grow this, kind of entity, mm-hmm. this business, whatever it is I'm creating with the podcast and my own brand of what else do I want to do with it? Am I going to be cooking? Am I going to be showing cooking? I have some product ideas I want, I'd love to have some different things, some definitely some, some conversation pieces for sure that you could use. So those are in my head. So there's a lot of other stuff in the works. The podcast is like kind of the thing I'll always be doing, I think, mm-hmm. because the guests are endless and there's so many cool people to share their story. And so I'm keeping it with that, and just learning. I'm always learning too. Like the business is all new to me too.
It's this is always going to be your bread and butter here. The fact that you get to sit down with somebody and pick their brain and ask them all these questions because you're genuinely interested in it, that's always going to be the bread and butter. Eventually, the merchandise will come, the programs that you create or the monetization that will happen. Yeah. But at the core is going to be what you're doing this for in the beginning, which is I legitimately want to talk to these people and find out their origin story. How did they cook something? How did they get into cooking or being a chef? And where can I grow from here? And that gives you that unique purpose to say, I generally want to go and find out about all this stuff. And if I can make some money off it down the line, that's great, but that's not the focus on it.
Yeah.
If you go into this thinking I'm going to make $1 million a year doing this, and you're in the wrong business, because that's not what this is about first. And people will snip it out right away. Like, oh, you're just doing it just because you want the clicks, the views or whatever. But when they know what you're really doing it for, that audience will stick with you. And you also learn, you also grow. And again, did you think you'd be doing this 10 years ago?
No way.
Is it?
No way. No way. Listen to Rogan and all my favorite podcasts, Rogan, shout out to Rogan's the GOAT. We know he's the best there is right now. But even he started with nothing, started just in his basement and in a room full of guys just, using some streaming service and just talking. They were like just BSing together because that's how it started. And people don't realize that. They see the product he has now and they're like, oh man, he's got no, dude. Like if you go back and look at the process of his podcast and why he is what he is, it's because he had genuine intention. I just want to talk to someone. And, it's become where now he's like providing a more educational thing for everyone too, which is great. So that's what it's kind of become. And everyone's excited for the next guest, whether it's, and I like it too. He doesn't have one genre of people. He's like, it's not just fighters.
Yeah. Although that's his bread and butter.
It is his bread and butter, but like he's also multifaceted with comedy and, everything else that he's tapped into. Right. So that's kind of why I like that. And I try to keep that in mind in the back of my mind is like food, shout out to all the chefs. I love you guys, but I'm not always after a chef, right? Because that's a very narrow, specific trade, and there's so much more out there. So I keep it open, try to keep it open. And then somebody asked me the other day, and they were just asking me what's the goal of the podcast? And I'm like, well, monetization is a long way away, but the passion for me is that I interview this guest and somebody from a far, far away place walks in their door. And they say, I heard this podcast from Dave's podcast, and I'm here to try your food, or I'm here to try your coffee. I'm here to try whatever it is, I want to see what you're doing, Mm-hmm. So that's part of the goal for sure.
That's awesome, man. And when you get to the point where you can clearly articulate why you're doing it, then that puts everybody into perspective. Okay, I get why Dave's doing this. Like for me, for example, the reason why I started this show, like we talked about earlier, is that I kept hearing from a lot of people that were making excuses why they couldn't do something, or that it was somebody else's fault. And I just came with the idea, like, no, people do have control over the things that happens in their life. You can't control when somebody passes on. You can't control when you get an injury. There are things that are out of your control, but you can't control how you act from that. This is the cards I've been dealt with, or I lost that fight, or I lost that game. For whatever reason, maybe I did get screwed around, but what am I going to do for that now? Okay, I can make excuses, or I can find a way to get better. This is the game I'm playing. How do I play the game better? And if you have that mindset, everything just changes at that point. Because you don't rely on anybody else in a good way to have to pick you up. You're like, no, I want control of this. I want to take control of my fitness or my finances or my mental health or the career that I'm in. I don't want to be stuck in a job that I hate for 30 years or whatever because, it pays the bills working in a cubicle all day, or it's Google. So they give me all this free stuff and I can't leave there. No, you do have control over it. Maybe it starts with, reducing your expenses so you don't have to depend on a big $250,000 Google salary or whatever it is, that you can live off a smaller amount, which opens up the door for you to say, well, okay, if I can live off this, maybe there's another career that I can do. I'm not tied down to this one job just because it has a lot of zeros at the end of the paycheck. No, I want to do something else that actually I enjoy doing. And to be able to bring people on here who have gone through like what you've gone through between the injuries and your mother passing on at the same time, could have easily have given up on that and you said no, you're able to pivot into something else. And that's the kind of story I like to share on here so people can hear this over time, that all these guests that he's bringing on have had something that has happened in their life that easily they could have given up on, but they decided to take control of whatever aspect it was, and they're thriving off of it. Or they're people who specialize in helping you gain control of your life that way. And the platform that I want to create is that you can come somewhere and you can get that. So you may not know who every guest is. In fact, you probably won't, but you know that when you come onto my show that you're going to get that kind of a story from them. And the more people hear that, the more it's going to reiterate in their minds. But it's going to take a long time. If I had a podcast that was micro niche, like I just talk about real estate or I just talk about investing, I would get bored with that pretty fast. Mm-hmm. So in my, some people tell you have to niche all the way down to get a specific audience. And in my mind this is a long game and I don't want to be tied down to just one specific aspect. The bigger theme is taking control of your life, but you can do it through fitnesses, through finance, through finding a new career. How do you fix your mental health? And those things I can keep talking about to people all day long. So even in the Food Origins podcast, you're right. You don't have to talk to just chefs all the time. You could talk to people in tech. You could create a theme around food in general, but you're talking to different people, the business side of it, the financial side of it, I guess one thing that I've heard from people who are chefs a lot is I have to eat so much because it's a part of the job. How do I keep myself in shape at the same time? That could be a cool thing there too. Like, how does that chef? How's that? Robert Ershawn or whatever, that guy that's like ultra bulked and he's like this big time chef. Okay, how do you stay that ripped and lean? And if you're doing it without the use of any performance enhancement stuff, how do you do that? Because I'm in the kitchen just as much as you are, and this is not how it looks. So it's funny.
Yeah,
how things
there's
can branch out.
I forget his name, but there's an Australian fitness chef. Like that's what he does. He cooks for fitness. So like he cooks for athletes, and there's a few of them out there. There's different ones. There's Paleo Chef on Instagram. She's awesome. Like she cooks for athletes she can't talk about. She's like these are athletes I can't even tell you who they are, but here's some of the stuff that's meal prepped for them. And it's, all healthy food and performance based. So like, they have a shake for after their workout. They have pre-game food. They have meals in between, it's all planned out, Like I asked Courtney about, MMA fighters and how their food is. And if there's anything interesting, he's like, there's not anything interesting because they have a regimented thing that's on there. I mean, I think guys like me are really good, chefs could come up with stuff to make things taste good. Mm-hmm. Like we can add a few things and try not to add too much calories or make that. But yeah, so like you understand there's different categories for everything and like fitness. And I'm still learning that too, like being hurt and stuff. It's like, and I like to eat. I love food and, food can be, kind of a, what do you call it? Like not a detriment, like a, not therapeutic, but it's like stress eating, like sometimes you stress eat just because you're like, I just want something freaking, whatever I want to eat,
Yeah. Like anything else, if you don't control it, it's like, all right, now
it can bring you down the path. Yeah.
Correct.
So, but like, yeah, so there are definitely people out there. Like I would love to talk to him that's a fitness chef, but like lately he's been doing some reels on Instagram where he'll go in and hit somebody up and say, "Hey Mike, how much do you spend on food every month?" And some of them sound pretty crazy amounts of money that people spend, but he's like, "I'm going to go to your apartment and cook whatever you have in your fridge."
Wow.
You know, and he does it. And sometimes they have nothing. Sometimes they got a plethora of stuff, and he'll just go in and make a clean, good cooked meal. And that's kind of neat. You know, like people need to see that. Like, hey, it can totally be done if you just have chicken breasts and some freaking onions and, you know, some eggs. And he's like, I'll make you an omelet, you know.
That's so awesome.
Stuff like that, right?
I think a lot of people would struggle with that. It's one thing to go to the store and buy the ingredients, but then to actually get in the kitchen and start chopping, and then you start telling yourself, it's a lot of work to make a salad or whatever.
I think I would like to get in some sort of aspect of teaching, but not like extensive. I don't have you know, I've never worked at a fancy, huge Michelin star restaurant or anything like that. I don't have that huge background, but getting past the hump of like cooking, like people are like, oh, I wish I could meal prep. And I'm like, well, if you actually do, like for me, I guess it comes easy, but that's something, you know, you can think about, right? But if you could meal prep, or you could, you know, cook a steak, or so there's a lot of like things that could go around. And I think that would be fun helping other people do that. And I try to do that, you know, through a lot of my general friends and stuff, or people that hit me up. But there's a lot of good chefs and good cooks out there shooting a lot of content right now. It's pretty easy. Like you can type in a dish on Instagram, hashtag, you know, ribs, and there's like, you know, 5,000 videos of ribs being cooked, you know.
That's crazy. And
so the content's there. It's just a matter of can you pass that on to that person and they can actually do it. So, yeah, that's something that I look forward to too, just helping people out, cooking in general, because it's not easy.
I mean, the fact is that you still went out there and you did it, though. Between your podcast and also just learning how to cook either way, is that you've still said, you know, I can get all the motivation in the world. I have to go out there and do it. I have to go out there and plug this thing in. I have to go out there and talk to the guest. And then once you take that next step, it's like, wow, I really can go all different facets here. You know, talking to that chef that has the paleo diet that she does for certain people to keep them in shape and whatnot. It's like, man, this one theme of food can branch out into so many different areas, and it means that if you're willing to do it, which it sounds like you are, you're gonna have a long future with this podcast.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear about it. I can't wait till you go into video.
Yeah,
it's as you can see here, it's a lot of work, and I was telling you, it takes me about 10 hours to finish everything up, from the time you set up to editing and making all the reels. Over time, you add it all up, it's about that much. But if you enjoy it, then you realize early on that I actually like doing this. I like getting the message out there. That the time is, you know, it doesn't matter as much, because I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for getting the right message out there. But this has been a great conversation. I think we're at hour 45 minutes already.
All right,
so,
damn.
Again, I got to tell you, time flies when we have these conversations, because things just come up that we both didn't think about in the beginning.
It does.
So what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Pretty easy. Foodoriginspodcast.com pretty much has everything. You'll see my podcasts. You can listen directly from there. The links are in there under podcasts. And then I'm food.origins_ on Instagram. And then there's an Instagram just for the podcast. It's just Food Origins Podcast. Those are the two easiest ones to get a hold of me. And then, yeah, man. And then that's it.
Wow. And I still have to pick your brain on some of these other places we were talking about. This pizza place in Los Altos, right?
Yep.
I got to go there. Was that the one featured on the internship?
I don't know if it was on the internship, but he's been one of my guests on the podcast. So
yeah, okay,
you can easily learn from what he has to say. And as a, you know, someone who worked in the industry and then opened his own, you know, it's pretty cool to see his progression. And then what's cool now is some of my guests know each other. That's becoming a thing too. And that's become really, really cool, is that, oh, you know, a guest I interviewed when I first started is like, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so. You know, like you always get referrals, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, no, it's not just I'm referring to him. He's my friend. Like we went through the pandemic together. And we, you know, talked every day, and this is how we discussed how we're going to keep our business going. And, people got to understand these restaurants went through hell for this process, and a lot of them didn't make it. And it's a sad thing. It's tough. And the restaurant business is probably the toughest business in the world, I think. The city used to have a stat where it's like 1 out of 100 restaurants that open make it past 2 years.
I think people forget just how thin the margins are, or don't know just how thin of a margin the restaurants run under.
Yeah.
And that every time that they have to increase prices, it's not because they're trying to necessarily make more money, but doing a restaurant in this city, you're paying the mandate tax, you're trying to pay your workers, and then they're saying, why would I want to work for a restaurant when I could work for tech or whatever? So then it's hard to find people. There's one place down the street here that has a sign on their door saying, our new hours are like 8 to 2 due to the fact that we can't find anybody to staff the restaurant.
Yeah,
we can only stay up until whatever. Like, wow, this never used to be a thing, but it's, and then the real sad part is when you walk down the street, you see all these restaurants that used to be open. They're all shut down now. And either they didn't make it out of the pandemic, or just the foot traffic left San Francisco in a way where, man, there's just nobody here anymore. And it's really, I think that would be a good thing to find out, is how a lot of these chefs and restaurateurs are pivoting. They're like, all right, this is what we've been dealt with. How do we get through this now? How do we say this is the new business model, or this is how we can keep the doors open and still deliver a great product? I'm really curious to see if that's becoming a conversation.
It is. It came up. I started this podcast at end of 2021, actual recording, and then didn't release it till April 2022. So that conversation was fresh on their minds. And, I didn't like bringing it up, but I was like, people need to know what it took to get through everything that was going on between, saying, we're going to close for a week. Then it came a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then it's like, okay, you have all these protocols. So they all talked about it. So I've gone over it with several of the owners, and they've all talked about it. So they give their breakdown on how they dealt with it. And each one's different. Whether they were able to get a parklet out front for the business, which allowed them more space, where they got lucky and they did sandwiches. Shout out to Ken Turner. He's Turner's Kitchen in the Mission on 17th and Guerrero over there. Really good sandwiches. He was a chef at, put
on the spot now.
Yeah. Zuni Cafe. Sorry. He was chef at Zuni Cafe. And then he, was done with being a chef, and he was like, I want to open my own thing. And he took over the Old Claire's Deli on 17th over there and opened his own restaurant. And you can imagine a chef, full-blown restaurant chef, making your sandwich. So they're going to be good. Yeah. So shout out to Ken. Ken was on the podcast, and he talked about that and having to come up with a cough shield and do the to-go model and kicking everybody out of the place. His place isn't huge, but he was fortunate that he's like, hey, I have a great to-go model. Everything can be ordered online and pick it up right away. So sandwiches were a good, easy one to pivot. But it wasn't as easy because you're still dealing with the customer base and having to navigate day to day, like, oh, you can do this now, or you can't do this, or, all that kind of stuff. So all those owners have talked about it, and each one has their way of how they dealt with it. And some of them, didn't, they didn't make it. That's the tough part, is they have friends that had their nice restaurant and they don't have it anymore.
Wow. I mean, it's the unfortunate part about the business, is that it's because the margins are so thin. It's really, if I have one bad week, it could be the end of my shop. Nothing that people want to think about. I heard somebody once tell me that probably the most profitable restaurant business is having a breakfast place, because you're only open so many hours. You're almost always guaranteed to be busy because everybody likes to go out and eat breakfast. Yeah. And the margins on what you buy for breakfast food, like eggs and whatnot, maybe not eggs right now, but are a lot better. And since you don't have to worry about hiring multiple staff members, you tend to thrive more. Have you heard that?
It's true. Even one of my instructors in culinary school said the same thing. He's like, breakfast will always sell. And it's kind of true. I mean, most people will go for breakfast a lot, and those do pretty well. Yeah.
Wow. So the secret out there to any restaurateur in the future right there, if you want to focus on breakfast, hey, and you find the right niche, you might be able to make it really happen in a much easier way. But Dave Sands, this was a great podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. I learned a lot about you and the Food Origins podcast. And I think what's really important here is that the audience, that they can hear your side of the story. And the overall theme of what I want people to get is you had been given a very bad hand at a very important time of your life. And you could have easily have said, that's the end of it. Or, I'll just live off of government stipends and then not figure out what I'm going to do after that. But you said, no, I have a passion. I have an interest. I want to do something. I want to make it happen. You didn't make any excuses. You went out there and you made it happen. And taking that first step to make your first episode, spending the money on all the equipment, and then taking it down to San Diego to set the whole thing up, probably not knowing what you guys are going to talk about. Just we're going to talk about something related to food. And then ultimately making that first commitment to click the submit button so it gets put out there in the rest of the world. That takes a lot, and it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of determination, and it takes a lot of confidence in yourself to be able to do that. So I'm excited for people to hear this episode here, even if you don't care about food, which I don't know who doesn't, but just to hear Dave's story here about how he was able to pull through that is what I want people to get out of this episode. So if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with people that you know that you think will get something beneficial out of this. And if you are listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other platforms, leave a comment for me and share the episode. This is how the algorithms figure out that people are enjoying it, and this is how they get to spread it out to other people who may not have even known that this show exists. But Dave Sands, thank you again for coming out.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Everybody have a good one.
Appreciate it. Take care.